was thinking about this Jokic 4-year run. This would be year 4 of just what an unbelievable playoff performer he's been. He's one of the greatest playoff performers in the history of the league, which I don't think gets mentioned that much, if not ever. 2021, 22, 23, and then first game this year, he's averaging 30 points a game, 13 rebounds, and 8 assists. He's a 54, 41, 80 percentage guy. 31.6 PER, which is like levitating above just about anybody. He's .301 win shares per 48. It's just like, it's obscene. And I was like, I wonder if anyone's even close to this in the last like 50 years, and went through. And the closest I could get, LeBron from 15 to 18 averaged 31, 10, and 8, but some of the advanced stuff wasn't as good. Jordan from 90 to 93 was 34 points a game, 7 and 7. And then the legend Larry Bird in 84 to 87, 27, 10, and 7, and was almost 50, 40, 90. And then Giannis was the only other one I could find where 19 to 22 is 29, 13, and 6. Does Jokic get credit for being an unbelievable playoff performer? Because I don't think he does.
Not to the level, like Lakers fans talking themselves into it. I'm like, wait, didn't you guys just see what happened last year?
Yeah, it just happened. It was a year ago.
People talk about him being like the worst MVP. You're like, what? Like, what is going on with you guys? Here's what I ask you. We have had, I mean, it's hard when you start going top 10 all time, right? Like, who are the unassailable top 10s in NBA history for you? I'm sure you have these off the top of your head.
Well, I remember Curry, it took forever for him to get to the 10th spot for me. And it's like basically Curry versus Kobe for that spot. And I had, heading into this season, I had Jokic 19th. I had him as the third highest guy on the level below the Pantheon. If he goes back to back, he goes in the Pantheon.
All right, so
I think he's against at that point, it's him versus Moses and Shaq and Hakeem, and we start arguing about that. That's the territory he's in if he wins again.
Okay, because this is good. All right, so right now it's Jordan, it's Magic, it's LeBron, it's
Russell.
Bird, it's Bill Russell, it's
Duncan.
Kareem, it's Duncan, Wilt.
Yeah.
So that's at 8.
Yeah. There's Jerry West is in there. Curry.
Jerry West is top 10 for you, and then you have Curry say 10, right? Just to kind of do this off the top. All right. So if you look at the guys that have been rolling through this generation, you're like, okay, Curry gets in there. I would have no issue with it. Obviously, I'm a fan of what he's done.
Curry 10th, and I have Durant 16th out of the new guys.
I think most people would say, I think Kobe's more popular than Steph, so I think there'd be more people saying you guys should have Kobe over Steph. Whatever, it's fine.
It's a really good argument. You could,
right,
because Kobe had more All-NBAs, he has more points. Like, you could argue the Steph run is coming to kind of a close, at least from a postseason standpoint. Kobe's postseason resume is better. It's a good argument.
There's also like the holes that Kobe has in comparison to LeBron, where you're like, hey, what happened there? Like Steph has those too. Where
Steph has 3 of the last 5 years, doesn't win a playoff game.
Right. 1 year he played 5 games. So
I'm just saying 3 of the last 5.
Well, just, hey, add in context. Hakeem, I get really defensive about. Probably more defensive of any player in history of like, I really don't want to have this guy outside of the top 10. I think I'll always say it, I think he's the most underrated like superstar that I can think of in NBA history. So if those are the 10, all right, and say if Kobe's your 10th, I'm not going to argue about it. We were projecting. Okay,
Kobe is my 10th right now. So I have Curry 9th, Kobe 10th, Jerry West 11th. I don't know what Jerry did to drop behind those guys, but it happened.
Was it a recent podcast interview? Just like, you know what, I'm moving him down to 11.
I don't know what it was. I don't know what he did. Could
have been Curry's, I don't know, 4th ring, another All-NBA. The point that I'm trying to make here is that there was a movement of like, hey, Durant could end up top 10 all time. Steph could end up top 10 all time. Giannis, like what is the finished product of Giannis? The point that I'm making in reference to Jokic is that if Jokic gets another one here, and he's year 2 or 3 of this 5-year window, and I think he's also going to age really well, he's probably going to pass all of these guys. Like, this is the level that he's at. So for anybody to arguing of like where he's at in today's game,
Yeah.
I don't even know that that's an argument anymore. That's why I had no issue whatsoever voting for him for MVP. I just went like, look, I know what the other numbers are. I know what the arguments can be. If you really want to get into seeding, we're separating it by a game here or there. I mean, go ahead if that's your tiebreaker. I think it's a ridiculous tiebreaker. But the control that he has over the game, and then you look at him historically, he has the highest career PER in playoff history. Okay? He's ahead of Jordan. He's ahead of LeBron. He's number one, the highest. Like, again, there's nobody higher than him. Now, granted, later on as he ages, that can dip. At one point, I remember Zach Lowe arguing Chris Paul and his Death to Rings piece that came out like a decade ago, and I absolutely loved it because he was like, look at Chris Paul's efficiency stuff here all time. He was a top 10 guy. He's still, I think, 14th on this list.
Yeah,
He's 16,
it gets tough when you get older. It hurt
Right.
Kobe too.
So Jokic may age behind Michael Jordan,
Yeah.
but there's a good argument to look at this now and say all these other names that we've talked about, like being in the absolute top 10 list of NBA players, Jokic is positioned to surpass these guys because the Durant argument becomes really complicated, I think, because this is all Jokic. This is his team. This is like, it's just going to ding Durant when you're comparing him to the five other guys that he's supposed to go ahead of. And unless he gets another one in Phoenix, it's going to be hard for him once he's done to go, hey, I'm going to put Durant ahead of Akeem or Steph or some of these other guys. He's just not going to pass those guys.
The spot Jokic can get to is in that kind of Duncan Bird Magic territory, that 5, 6, 7, 8 range. I mean, he's got 3 MVPs in the last 4 years. He finished second the other year. He's about to win back-to-back titles. He's the favorite.
We don't know that. We don't know that
but
yet.
I'm saying he's the favorite.
If he does,
he's the favorite to do it. And it goes back to what we were talking about with Embiid. It's in a way, knock on wood, it's like the opposite of Embiid because there's something so insanely durable about him. And I feel the same way about Luka, actually, too. The speed they play, I just don't see a lot of potential for terrible injuries with those guys. Right? The way they move, the way they carry themselves and their bodies, some guys are just durable. We haven't seen really any Jokic injuries that I can remember. And he played 79 games this year. He's going to play 20 to 25 playoff games again, and he's just going to come back the next year. Duncan was pretty durable too. Some guys are just durable. But I think that's where he ends up, and I think he's that good, and I think it's justified. And the stats back it up. And that's why I brought up that 4-year. I think 4 years is a nice way to look at players, because if you have like a 4-year kind of peak, or a 4-year snapshot, that's a long time, right? It's a presidential term. It's somebody going to college and graduating. It's a long ass time. If you're that good for that long, it's meaningful in a different way. So